What's going on, people, and welcome to a brand new episode of Too Many Games and Not Enough Time, the podcast where we get to speak to incredible people across the world. I'm the one and only Mr. Midas, your host with the most. Now, remember, we have just started a Discord, so if you want to come and keep up with Midas Games, myself and Mini Midas, come and jump in. We've got an exclusive competition just for the Discord community, but it's not even about that today, because what it's about is the sick guest that I've got in the house. I'm talking 1/3 of the CyberNerds. I'm talking the hypest guys in the game. I'm talking that run it back crew. Sam, aka Mr Blitztek, welcome to Too Many Games. How you doing, my G?
What's good? What's happening, man? I'm doing great, man. Appreciate you bringing me on. And yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun time for sure.
Fam, I'm super excited to have you here. Now, we're gonna go straight into it because obviously CyberNerds do huge things. You lot are almost 200k subscribers. Congratulations on that. Like, you lot are doing bits. But I know you as the gaming man from CyberNerds. That's what I know. Like, that's the information you give me. That's the word on road. But Joe's saying something else, fam. Joe's saying that he's the gaming man. So we need to settle this right now.
Man,
like, who is the gaming man from the clique?
Well, I'm gonna obviously say me, innit? Like, obviously Jay would say he's the gaming guy, but I would say he's more the movie guy. Like, you ask that man about movies, he's just gonna go off, and like his trivia and knowledge about that whole industry is unfathomable. But for me, like I said, games, I play games day in, day out. I curiously live through games day in, day out. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, I say I'm the gaming guy.
Now, you are the gaming guy. All jokes aside, like, you both do this thing, and as a channel, your channel's incredible. Like, you do really great reactions. And for me, like, me coming into the gaming space, like, the whole reason I came into the space is the same reason you lot, not being able to see yourself and just being able to make the content that that people who look like us and sound like us can really connect to. So that's super dope. So first of all, kudos on that. But let's get into it. So when me and you met, like, we were chatting for hours. We was chatting about some of our favorite games, the games that changed our lives. So my first two questions for you are, well, no, it's one question, but it's two answers. What are the first two games that are, they don't have to be the first two games that you've played, but the first two games that stand out as pinnacle games in your life? So it could be a game that really got you into gaming. It could be a game that made you want to work in gaming. Like, two games at the beginning. We're talking Lico Sam. You get me? Lico Sam. Lico Sam. Two games that really kind of change your perception of, raw, this gaming thing is mad.
That's actually kind of difficult. I never really thought about it, to be honest. But I would say one of my first experiences that really changed my perspective on gaming was back on I would say the NES, and it would have to be something. What was that game? See, to go far back is actually kind of mad. But I'm gonna just say Super Mario, innit? Like, first game I ever got. Just trying to complete it. You only got lives, passwords, no memory card, no nothing. That kind of experience for me, I was like, raw, gaming is like a whole different form of entertainment. So much that I was thinking, how is this little box outputting, like, just, you know, pixels, and you're pressing buttons and you're moving on the screen and all those kind of things there. So for me, I'll say that's one of the first games that kind of changed my perspective. And then obviously going through the years, the second game, which then blew my mind, which I still think not enough games are like this, and I feel it was way before its time, was like Vagrant Story. That was on PS1. I don't think many people played it, and it was in the era of like RPGs, you know, Final Fantasy, and it was the same studio, but they never made a sequel. This game was like, you could craft, like, crafting back then was, for me, is like almost non-existent. You could have multiple weapons and multiple setups. So if there was like a ghost enemy, you have like a ghost setup for that. If there was like freaking evil spirits, I was like, this game is actually quite mad, to the point where I've never actually seen this before. I was like, why isn't there more games like this, especially on the PS1? And only until now, to like PS3 and PS4 days, we're getting games like that. But for me, those are the two standout games I've ever like played in my life.
So it's so funny, yeah. So I grew up as a Sega kid, yeah. Yeah. I grew up as a Sega kid, and my cousins had the Nintendo. And I remember the first time I went to the house and saw, I think it was either Mario 2 or Mario 3, and I was like, raw, this is cold. Like, who is this brother, this plumber, who's just jumping around, jumping on heads like nothing, squashing, yamming mushrooms, and then who is this Bowser Don? Like, it was so sick. And it's mad back then because we didn't know what a platformer and a driving game, and the only game that we knew it was specifically a genre was fighting games, because obviously it's a fighting game, but we didn't even know what a platformer was. But how sucked in was we? And the maddest thing was that you saying about the memory cards and the saving. Them games were hard, fam.
Exactly.
They were hard, and you'd play for time, and you'd get to a certain level, and then dead.
Yep.
You gotta start again.
That's it.
Even more mad if you had a family member, like I said, I'd go to my cousins, and my cousin would get mad because I never used to play Mario, and they used to bang it. I'd be rubbish. So like they'd get to a certain level, and parents are like, you have to share, you gotta share, and then I'll be playing and I'll be dead, and they'll get vexed.
That's it. That's why someone had to be smart enough to come up with the 2-pad controller, not like plugged in thing, because if you go over to your cousin's house and they've got like 9 lives and they've got all the power-ups, you're just running into enemies and just destroying man's progress. Yes, it's actually peak, you know.
Stress. Now, Vagrant Story is a bad boy RPG, and it's really interesting because at that point, I don't even think they were Square Enix then. I think they were Square. Square and Squaresoft. And there were so many RPGs that they made that just kind of got fell to the wayside. Like, I just played Live Alive the other day. I didn't even know that existed, fam. But Vagrant Story, I liked it because obviously it was like Swords, but it was more like kind of knights. And my man had that sick metal plate on his chest, and even his design was sick. Like it was a bad boy game, and I don't even remember the crafting in it. Like I didn't even remember there was crafting in it, but that's an RPG that, you know, like there's those lost RPGs that need to kind of be brought forward. That's one of them for me. That, could you imagine that getting the Final Fantasy VII Remake kind of treatment?
I am praying like every single day, that these guys go back into their library and literally remake this game, because like I said, it felt like this is the kind of game that should be made today.
Yeah,
it just knew what it was. Like, even like you're saying, not only did it have like a good crafting system, even the combat system was so different. You have a Saphir and you have like a chain, you could poison, then this. I was like, who's making this game? And like, how is it like this?
But even down to like the puzzle mechanics, because like back then, like if you think of the puzzles, like there's not really proper great puzzles in Final Fantasy VII, and then they tried to do it a bit more in 8, but the puzzles a bit. But Vagrant Story had some proper puzzles, like with the blocks and stuff like that. So I get you on that. Do you know what's the game I really want them to bring back? Yeah, and I say to people all the time, the game's dead, but I love the characters and I love the thought of it. And I will stand by this every day, fam. The game was dead, but if they remade it and redid the story and stuff, it'd be sick. The Bouncer.
I agree. I love like hack and slashes and beat 'em ups like that. And again, I feel like they were just testing stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, like in the Bouncers, like the fighting for me was pretty good. Like you said, everything else was kind of dead. And I think they were just trying to figure out the ragdoll mechanics. Because when you got hit and you just flew across the room, your body was all like this and stuff. I'm like, what? What's that about? But
fam, do you know how many people I've argued with who tell me the Bouncer's sick? They're like, no, that game was the best. Yes, I get it was the game when you was young, when you got your, because it was most people's first PS2 game. That was like, remember, like when we were proper young, there was no, oh my gosh, this is the game you had to get. You would just get the game that would either be on the back of the box or when you went into the shop, what looked good. But the bouncer was like, it was in the front of magazines and they promoted it and people were like, yeah, this was the game. And the graphics were way ahead of anything. Nothing else looked like that. But yeah, the game was shagged out.
Yeah, it was dead. Yeah, there's nothing else to it, to be honest. But yeah, but if they remake that today, like I said, a little bit of a story, even just like little better mechanics, I feel like, yeah, the game would be sick, man. The game would be good.
So when you first came on the pod, I was shouting praises of everything you do with the CyberNerds, and you lot are doing like major bits. But if this is someone's first time coming across you, they're not super hyper aware of what you do. Maybe they've seen your face here or there, but they're not super hyper aware. If you had to give them like a little brief summary of who and what the CyberNerds are, what would you say it is?
Ooh, so I would say the three CyberNerds, there's three brothers sitting on a couch arguing about movies, comics, and games. So obviously we're just like nerdy people who are just trying to bring a community together, just have like a conversation about, can Goku beat everyone in the universe? Who's the strongest out of Hulk and Superman? What's the best movie alive? Probably Scott Pilgrim. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, well, we just like to have conversations, whether it be controversial or not. Like we're just here to have a fun time.
Love it. So when we first met, we was having hella conversations about Final Fantasy and Legend of Zelda, two of like my most incredible franchises. What is it about what one of those games? Because I know they're two very, very special franchises, but what out of those two franchises is it the one that really sits in your heart? Is it Legend of Zelda that you ride with your chest, or is it Final Fantasy?
That's actually quite a tough one, yeah. I would have to say Final Fantasy, because even though like Zelda has like a running theme of, is this like the same story throughout centuries of that same timeline, which I think is actually kind of like a thing that these guys always get reincarnated into this century, and this thing happens. They've got a battle for the Triforce. You've got Ganon, Zelda and Link. Link is the hero. Zelda's like the princess that is in between those two, and Ganon's just trying to get the almighty power. And the fact that you could keep retelling that story, but everything else changes, I think that's actually kind of legit. Like,
yeah,
I can't imagine any other franchise doing it as well as Zelda does, especially in gaming. But for me, Final Fantasy has to be just that game, yeah, because they just got stories everywhere. Like, I don't know how they've done it from 1 all the way, even like 16 right now is looking ultra sick, stupidly sick, and it's just like, boom, today we're with Titus and his crew. What's going to happen here? They've got Blitzball happening over there. Like, it's actually like really, really sick. And then you got freaking number 8 where you got Squall, man's in the school, and this and that's happening. Then you got Cloud. Obviously, 7's like one of the biggest ones where you got Cloud. He's trying to fight Sephiroth, one of the biggest and protagonists and antagonists in gaming history. Everyone knows those two. Everyone knows Squall and his Cloud and his freaking special. That's it. Like, it's just very iconic. So they're able to make stories, separate stories, and even them separately are very iconic. So
do you know what used to blow my mind? If you remember back in the days, nobody cutscenes could look like Final Fantasies. If we think of like what Naughty Dog do now with games, and you're just like, how do you make a game look that good? Like, Square were the leaders at that. Like, no game, like, and not even necessarily the main cut game, but the cut scenes in the game, though, that VR, no one could talk to
out of
them.
this world.
No one could talk to them. All right, so let's move forward. Obviously, we spoke about Liquor Sam. Gaming has changed. Like, obviously, we've both been playing games for a long time. You're talking about going back to the NES era, like the little pixelated. Them man, they made Mario have a mustache just so they could use the pixel for it to work, right? Because they couldn't do a mouth. To games now like God of War, The Last of Us, so many. What are one of the new pinnacle games that really stand out to you? Like one of the new games that has just blown your mind of how did we get here?
Oh, if the thing is, yeah, because my backlog is so big and I'm playing so many games.
And I don't even want your favorite. I just want one that just stands out to you. So it's not, no one can't put you on the spot and say, oh, it's your favorite. Just one that really stands out to you.
Can I say 3? Is that all right?
Aye. Man, I said 1, you know. Man went 3. All right, come on then.
I can't help you.
Quick
things, yeah. All right, cool. So 1, I would say Hades. Like, these man made like one little story. Obviously, you know, Greek mythology. They make it like blow out into this road-like kind of game where you're just coming across all these characters that probably some people haven't even heard of in Greek mythology. But this guy come across all these characters. He's actually trying to just fix his family because there's just bare issues and stuff. And the way they did it, the storytelling for me is actually phenomenal. And the studio behind it, I've actually forgot their name, but if you go search the game Hades, Supergiant Games, I believe they are actually.
They do Bastion and all of them games.
Exactly. Yeah. All their storytelling games, which are the ones I've played anyway, always been on par. So Hades is pretty good storytelling. Next one is Returnal. Returnal's pretty sick. Just for a bullet hell shooter, I wasn't expecting much, yeah? The gameplay is already good enough as it is, but when you actually figure out the story as well, mind-blowing. Actually phenomenal. I won't say too much, go play it if you haven't already. And then obviously my number 1 game, which I was going to say anyway, Last of Us Part 2. Bare people hate it, bare people love it. It's very splitting the fan base apart, but for me, I like the story and the mechanics and what they've done with just, I think it was on just the PS4, wasn't it? Didn't come to the PS5, which I find was actually crazy what they've done with that technology, to be honest.
I am super surprised about your list, but I love it. So, first of all, I'm not into roguelikes. It's not my thing, but Hades was so sick. The voice acting was done incredible. The combat was so good. And just even linking Hades and Returnal, like really smart to be able that, because the thing that frustrates me, the reason why I don't play games like Dark Souls and stuff, I don't like to just continuously die, just dead. And the purpose of those games are dead, get better, get better. And the loot that they do is incredible. And Hades is such a work of art, and I understand why it won so much Games of the Year, because even me, someone who's not into that genre, was proper sucked in the art style and like even the way, like you said, they did the twist on Greek mythology, super cool. Takes me back to like Sega days. It reminds me of them old days, that space shooter. I can't remember what it's called, and you shoot in bare balls and you can go up and down and stuff like that. It gave me that kind of feeling, but in a proper graphical sense. Like, it looks incredible on a PS5. And what they did with DualSense, the DualSense for me is the best thing about next gen technology. That and the SSD cards. But yeah, the DualSense is so good. And what they did with DualSense is incredible. Brother, we need to talk about The Last of Us, because I am a bit of a Naughty Dog fanboy, yeah? And The Last of Us Part 1 was the first game that made me feel that I could feel sadness in a video game. Like, and I felt sad in a video game, like in Final Fantasy VII, but it was just a different emotion. I'm talking like proper mess me up. Like, if I was a crier, I might have bawled a tear, you get me? A little piece of water might have dropped from my eye or something. Gotcha. But The Last of Us Part 2 was so interesting. And I tell you why it's super interesting. Because for me, it's like Last of Us Part 1, perfect game. And then big scene happens. We're not going to spoil it. Huge scene happens. And this is a little bit of a spoiler. But basically, you have to play the second part of the game as someone else. Most people probably know that by now. Bam! I was vexed playing as this person. Vexed, so vexed. I didn't want to continue playing. But I'm like, you know what? I got to still play. I need to know what happens. Okay. And then, Sam, I'm playing. and the person busts a little joke and I laugh. I'm like, don't make me laugh.
Yes,
Don't make me
there you
laugh.
go.
Don't make me laugh at your joke, idiot. I got vexed about you making me laugh. You get me? And then I got to a point where I started to empathize with this person.
Right.
And I didn't know a video game could make me feel empathy. I felt so many experiences. I felt excitement. I've been scared. I've been sad. I've been hyped. But I've never felt empathy, fam. I never knew. Like, the last time I felt that kind of empathy, fam, was what's Will Smith's film with his son?
I know what you're talking about.
You know what film I'm talking about. How can neither of us think about? But with his son, and he's in the toilet with his son. That film made me bawl.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness. That made me cry, fam. I don't even cry like that, but that film made me bawl, yeah? That kind of empathy I felt in The Last of Us. And you know, when I finished that game, I was like, Naughty Dog are geniuses. You know why? Because they tell their story, not our story. And as gamers, we're always feeling like it's our story because we play as them, but it's their story. So we're running out of time, but it's The Last of Us. I'm going to stretch the show a little bit more. Just give me a quick summary. Obviously, you spoke about it a bit more, but give me a quick summary of why that it's so epic for you.
So you kind of like touched on it, yeah, because obviously I've started to realize the more I watch TV shows, movies, especially games, that like, is the villain, or sometimes the villain is the hero of their own story, but we only see it through maybe the eyes of the protagonist. So it's like, oh, that person over there, he's doing a madness, and we never really come to understand why they're doing what they're doing. So I think even in recent time we see Thanos, we understand him, even though I feel like the Infinity War movie is through Thanos' eyes, taking on our heroes. But some people are like, oh, I understand what Thanos is doing. And that's why I feel like The Last of Us Part 2 makes us do. Obviously, events happen, you play as one character, you're like, this is the person we know, our hero, they're just doing whatever they're doing. And then you come to play as someone else, and you're like, I don't want to play as this person. Like, they just done a madness to someone I know that I've been walking with all this time. But then you're going through her shoes, you're walking like the whole stretch of the mile, yeah? You're like, I understand. If I was in this person's shoes, I'll probably be doing the same thing, especially in that world. This happens. Yeah. And you're just going through everything. Like I said, the emotions come out. You're feeling it because you're now there. You're doing this adventure with that person. You're like, damn, who is the hero? No one's the hero.
Yeah.
No, there's no hero, bro. Yeah. And this is and games don't do that. Games don't do that. So,
but the best villains ever are the ones that honestly think they're doing the right. Not ones who are just doing a madness for the sake of it. Literally actually feel like they're doing right for themselves or their family. Sam, we've gone way over. We're meant to be a 20-minute podcast, but we've way run out of time. It's been so good talking to you. As you could tell, we could have probably spoke for another half an hour easily. I know that you are doing madnesses at the CyberNerds, but you also have your own YouTube channel where you play games and you react to games and stuff like that. So where can people actually watch you playing games?
So yeah, you can come find me at YouTube/C/Mr Blitz Just go search me. Or you can just find me on Twitch playing fighting games or the latest games. Twitch.tv/Mr CyberNerds. Just search up Mr. CyberNerds, Mr. Blitztek.
My name even knows his own name, you know?
I have to catch myself there. Yeah, Mr. Blitztek, just go search me. I'm everywhere, basically. So
and make sure you go over to CyberNerds and subscribe. Help them hit that 200K. They are so close. Get them over the finish line. I've been Mr. Midas. He hasn't been Mr. CyberNerds. Nah. He's been Mr. Blitztek. And we out of here.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.